Started with this week's edition of the Yamhill Leadership Roundtable, and that's the cue for McMinnville Community Media to start live streaming it, just so you know, Brett. It's great to have all of you with us. And we have with us today, in fact, both Fritz Graham from Senator Wyden's office and Betsy Emery from Senator Merkley's office. And they'll be able to tell us that this massive bill that funds the federal government passed, and all of the things that are in it to help people in our communities. But before that, we also have with us Brent Nielsen on behalf of the Sheridan School District. We have Mayor Linda Watkins from the City of Carlton. We have Director Lesley Manfrin from Yamhill County Health and Human Services. And we got Jody Christensen with us from the Governor's Office Regional Solutions staff. And I'm Casey Kula, I'm Yamhill County Commissioner. And we'll say welcome to all of you. And we have with us in the audience as well, Cynthia Thompson, who manages Yamhill County Transit Agency, but she's going to just be in the audience and listen. So what I want to start with is to hear from Jody Christensen about what's happening in the governor's office, what the state is doing with American Rescue Plan dollars or with infrastructure dollars, and how can cities and counties work with you. And welcome, and anything else you'd like to update us on too. There's a lot happening.
There is a lot happening. Thank you, Commissioner. And it's fun to be back with you all. I'll start with just a couple of items so that we get that sort of, get the ball rolling here. The bipartisan infrastructure bill that was passed has significant investments coming into Oregon, around $5 billion. So there's an enormous amount of opportunity. And right now, the Director of Regional Solutions, who also is the Policy Advisor for Jobs and Economy, Leah Horner, is now our Director of Infrastructure in the Governor's Office. And part of that responsibility is to co-lead with ODOT, Oregon Department of Transportation's Director, Chris. They're co-leading the infrastructure cabinet. And what that really means is they're taking the opportunity to lay the ground for a systematic approach to those investments coming into the state, and really trying to create ease of access for local jurisdictions to understand where the pots of money are and how the agencies are sort of thinking about it and the approach that they're taking to get this money out. At the same time, they're working on some public-facing communication tools so that local jurisdiction can also access immediate information as it's coming up. So all that being said, I know there's an urgency of like, how do we connect in? Keep that urgency at the forefront, but remember too, this money will be deployed over the next 5 years. So there'll be different tranches, different opportunities. There'll be money coming through existing programs, and then there may be some tweaks to existing programs, and there may be brand new programs. So that all takes time. And so keep in touch with your local contacts. I would also encourage you to make sure that you know who the Regional Solution team members are, above and beyond the coordinator, right? Regional Solutions is a comprehensive program that includes a lot of state agencies engaged in the region. So coordinators are just that, we coordinate, but the technical support is really coming from those agency representatives. So make sure that you're keeping in good communication with people. And so you probably will get tired of me saying this, but this is the secret sauce. Keep working your projects. Don't let them gather dust. Know where you are in the project. Think about your projects not as the whole, but as phased. What can you get done in the next 12 to 18 months? What does 2 years look like? What does 3 years look like? Because know that this money, while it has 5-year horizons, it all has clocks on it, right? So how do you get your project to the readiness for the next step? And think about it in that way. Engage with the Council of Governments. They're also thinking a lot about how to support the region in that collaboration. So make sure that you're your city administrators, county administrator is engaged in those conversations that are happening. Just and Business Oregon is a key partner in all of this, right? That's infrastructure. And so our regional development officers, Arthur Chaput, I suspect all of you know him. He's very much out in the public, great advocate for this community, really is skilled at understanding where projects are. He asks really good questions. So keep him apprised. It's if it's an email update or a quick phone call, I encourage you to do that, because we just need to keep those projects, keep the engine in the car, if you will, and then you'll know what the next point is to drive it to. So that is what I encourage you to do. I also think what we've learned over the last couple of years, it's really important, and I think probably Fritz and Betsy will tell you this too, is that the elected officials, your county, your mayors, your city council, your county commissioners, and then your representatives and your senators, that cover your region. It's really important to keep them apprised of your projects. And they're not going to want the 72-page schematic of how you're going to build your sewer system. What they need that what I call a one-pager. It's the elevator speech. What's the name of your project? What is the project? Where's your funding coming from? What's the gap you're trying to meet? And who do they call? Right? So always have that updated, make sure that everybody has that at their fingertips. Something I've learned in this job is that what I knew last week could be different today, and it could be meaningful. It could be really powerful to have the current information, so that when someone calls me, I'm not going to say, well, 30 days ago, Mayor Watkins said, I'm going to say, well, I just got an email yesterday that told me what was happening, and let me forward that to you, and I'll make sure that the mayor connects with you as well. So those are the kinds of things that we really need to be our own best marketers on our projects. So that's my pitch there. I think also, Commissioner Kula, you had asked me to sort of talk about the Bill 5202, and that has lots of projects in it as well. So we know that the long session had 5006, that had a number of our projects in our region, and I hope everybody's working those. That's where the senators and the representatives had allocated funds to be able to dedicate to projects. And I took a look at where we are in our region, and I think everybody's on track. So we're good with 5006. 5202 is the new one, right? That's the one that was just approved. I'm going to do something that's going to hopefully not drive everybody crazy, but in the chat, and I'm assuming our guests can see the chat as well, I'm going to put in the chat the 34-page spreadsheet with all of the projects and all of the programs that were funded in 5202. But the secret here is you can search it by name. So if you can search it by your community's name or project. Now, this is why it's important to take a look at that. You probably already know if you have a project in there, but what agency will be deploying your funds? That's what you need to figure out. So on this spreadsheet, you'll see agency identified. Now, I don't think that they'll have information for you today, but this is who is your point of contact for that agency, so that you're continually kind of updating them or just checking in to make sure that you're getting ready to receive, apply for, be a part of that funding. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat. So Commissioner, I don't know if there were other things that you needed me to talk about, but that's what I had on deck.
Well, thank you very much, Jody. Thanks for all of your work. And of course, there's probably questions, but you got us started, right? So with that, I will say that from both our Senate staffers, but also from people in the community. Are there questions for Jody? And also the folks who are in the audience, you can also, attendees can put questions in the chat as well. And I will say that Jody, we definitely know Arthur around here, and Brent and I were smiling because Arthur was at the naming ceremony for the Sheridan Career and Technical Education Center last, whatever that was.
It was, I think it was yesterday, wasn't it? And I missed that. And Brett and
What
I
day?
know each other via phone conversations. We've never met in person, but we were talking about the initial funding that came, and I was trying to help them sort of navigate the DAS situation.
Well, and,
Yeah.
and I'm going to kind of, without raising my hand here, just jump in here, Jody. You have been incredible in everything I've seen you've been involved in. But I guess if there's anyone who's questioning or not understanding any of the stuff Jody has shared, follow her word by word, and you'll get where you need to. She's a rock star. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well, one question, Jody, that I had for you was with the Future Ready Oregon funding, is there a way to have some of that money go towards the CTEC West in order to at least get one pathway started? Since we know that it's a large hurdle, the financial hurdle of getting that space ready, but.
Thank you for that question. So the Future Ready Oregon is a $200 million investment in workforce training. It is historic in the investment. And K through 12 was not part of the package. And the reason is that we were looking at ways to get people to employment opportunities. So I think that K through 12 has significant funding in pathways. What I would recommend is that, and I'm happy to convene something on this group's behalf. We could bring in the policy advisor who was the champion for that project, as well as Marin Ariola, who is the co-chair on that package with the Environmental Justice Council. So, or I'm sorry, Equity, the Governor's Racial Justice Councils. It's hard to keep track of all the committees, right? But where I think there's opportunity is, if I understand correctly, that the center would be a place for adult training as well. I think there's opportunity there. So I would highly recommend that the leadership of the center connect with, and low-hanging fruit for us is Willamette Workforce Partnership. They will be highly engaged in the deployment of those, and also start to build a coalition of community-based organizations that serve those that have traditionally not had access to career opportunities or education opportunities. So those that serve our Latina, Latinx, Latino communities, those that serve people who've maybe previously been incarcerated. So find out who those groups that have maybe in the past been disconnected from traditional workforce development opportunities, and really build that coalition. I think there's an extraordinary opportunity in the community of Sheridan, Willamina, and the West Valley to be able to really lead the way in building that now, because the funding is so historic in that area.
Well, that's super helpful. Thank you, Jody. Are there other questions for Jody? So Jody, one of the I have a question, and one there seems to be a perennial challenge of how to access federal and state dollars on internet expansion and access specifically. And I'm wondering whether the legislature or the governor's office has added any further tools for communities in getting fiber in the ground and to people's homes in a way that they can afford. And I say that just because it seems like it's a continual thing that there is funding, but it doesn't get to pipes in the ground, at least in our area.
So I appreciate that question, and there's significant investments coming into broadband expansion. I think there's a couple of things that I would recommend. Is one, make sure that everyone is following the work that's being done by the broadband office, which is being stood up now. And two, the director for the broadband office is a Yamhill County resident. So Daniel Holbrook is in this community, and I think inviting him to talk about how the approach that they're taking and sort of understanding where the entry points are. Again, it's a brand new office and it's got funding. So it's an opportunity to get into the ground level. But I think they're starting to strategize now about that. And he is engaged with the federal government on understanding how that money's coming into Oregon. So yeah, what we knew last week is probably different than what we know today. So it's just keeping in contact and making sure that you're expressing what the needs are clearly and where the gaps are clearly, so that he can start to embed that in some of the thinking that they have.
Well, that's super helpful. I will invite Daniel, since I know him, but I didn't know he was in that role, to join us at another meeting. And I will say that I've been on a Association of Oregon Counties actual in-person event all morning, and a conversation. So one thing that the Association of Oregon Counties does is it manages and keeps in place the city county insurance service, which provides liability coverage, among many other things, to cities and counties. And I was like, while we're thinking about what AOC can do that actually brings people together as opposed to tearing them apart and wrestling with things, is to consider AOC and the LOC together, essentially setting up a cooperative that does broadband, because there's for-profit entities, and then there's cities and there's counties, and how do you do it across a whole state in a way that actually works, and that's valuable to people? So more conversations to be had there, but thank you for that. It's great. And one thing that I also had a conversation with the AOC that seems like it might be relevant here, Jody, is that I saw that the governor declared a drought again this year already in Klamath County. And I was standing there talking to somebody from Klamath County Commissioner, and I said, what's your big thing right now? And he said, water, of course. And they're trying to piece together, how do we get water to rural residents, and I described how in Yamhill County it's more of a cities who are challenged with their own water systems, and of course Fritz and Betsy will be able to tell us about the money that's coming to them, but they struggled with how do we, in the moment when they don't have water, how do we get it? And I wondered whether you might be able to do the 30-second version of, if a city is getting short on water, kind of what the process looks like. Because you and I were involved in it, but other people don't really know, when a city is short on water, what do we do? And what tools are there once there's an emergency declared?
Yes. So I think that in 30 seconds, thanks. So I think it's a two-prong approach. One is you're dealing with an immediate issue that is at hand, so you follow the emergency process. And what we've learned through the emergency process is once a declaration is put in place, both at the city level, then it moves to the county level, and then the state's involved. But your emergency management system has a pretty clear pathway, and I think it's really understanding how that works. And I don't know if that was, but it deploys and it opens up more opportunity for the community, and brings different people to bear on that effort. The second thing is, I think we have to realize is that you don't want the emergency system to be your standard protocol for your water, right? So you have to do two things. One, you've got to understand what your immediate need is. And two, you have to have your long range planning in place. So you don't want to be caught off guard without a plan, because what's going to happen is when you declare an emergency, people are going to pay attention. And if you don't know what the solution is, you've got to spend time to back up and start to figure out what the solution is. So it's hard work. It's not easy. But I think the lessons learned for some communities that have had to sort of backstep and go, okay, what is the solution? How do we explore that? That adds months. And you're going to, and what you want to do is queue your community up because it will, the funding will probably be a package type of funding. It's not going to be a single source. It's going to be different colors of money, and it's going to come in different time frames. So much like we talked about earlier, make sure that your planning is moving forward and that you're establishing what you can within your city, a task force, if you will, or some planning tool that is recognized and that is formal. And so you're bringing that to bear. So I remember one time someone said to me, and this was pre-COVID, he said, the last thing you want to do in emergency is exchange business cards. And what that means is that you've got to know who your people are before you need them, right? And so I think water, that is the thing that should be a paramount discussion. There's only so much of it, and there are challenges. We have old systems trying to pump a lot of water around, and so we've got to figure out solutions.
That was like the best 2-minute version of the 30-second that you could do. So thank you. And anybody who's listening, we'll revisit that as needed. And Jody will be there with you. So, and pay attention, Heidi Bell from City of Sheridan. No. Okay, are there any other questions for Jody? All right, well, thank you very, very much, Jody. I really appreciate you joining us today. And I'm gonna turn it over to Director Manfrin to give us an update on COVID and any other things you'd like to just give us a sense of what HHS is working on and public health as well. And thank you, Director Manfrin.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. I'm also happy to be here with what feels like really encouraging and good news, whereas I think a lot of times when I've been here with you all, it's to be sharing not so great news. So, right now, Yamhill County, we continue to see our case counts go down week over week over week, including this last week where we had a total number of cases of 42 last week, which is really remarkable, far lower than we've seen in a very, very long time. And I'm really happy about that. Of course, we do know that there are individuals who maybe have mild symptoms and not seek testing, and certainly individuals may be doing home tests. So there could be a broader number, but I think that we've got a lot of other really wonderful indicators that are really demonstrating to us that community spread is indeed low right now. And those other indicators are really, of course, hospitalizations. Our overall positivity rate has really been holding below 5% for the most part in the 7-day week averages, which is really wonderful. We are categorized as a low spread county within the CDC's guidance as well. A large portion of Oregon is in that now. There are a handful of places in the moderate category and 2 counties that are in the high category, but luckily Yamhill and the surrounding areas are all in the low. We hope that lasts, and we hope that continues. Of course, if we've learned nothing else from COVID, it's that there is a level of unpredictability here, and so we will continue to remain vigilant and watch all of the data sources and things that we can to make sure that we're paying attention to those to see if there's anything that we need to do in terms of pivoting from a local public health response, which could mean things like ramping up testing again or things of that nature. So we're watching things closely. We're watching what's happening in places like the UK, where they're seeing a little uptick in cases that the people are thinking is likely related to the variant of Omicron, which is Omicron being BA1, this being BA2. Now, the good news is that the variant and the mutations are not nearly as significant as we saw jump from, say, the Delta to Omicron, which is good news. And so there's reason to believe that immunity that people have related to vaccines or previous infection, will likely be will support an individual should they get exposed to the new variant. So again, watching all those things very closely. The other thing that we're paying attention to is we get wastewater data. We are very lucky. We actually have 3 communities in Yamhill County that submit information for wastewater. That's McMinnville, Newburgh, and Sheridan. So we get regular data on that and can watch that and monitor that to see if we're seeing any fluctuations or things changing there. It has slightly decreased, as you could imagine, since January when we saw some peaks. And it seems to be holding pretty steady right now. So we'll continue to monitor all of those things and push any information out that we think the community needs to be aware of, so that you can make your own informed choices around what you're choosing to do. Namely, the mask mandate being gone now. So our goal is just to make sure that we can keep people as informed as possible so that they can then make informed decisions about what they want to do when they're out and about in the community. Of course, there are individuals that we do recommend strongly consider continuing to wear masks, and those are those folks that are really at high risk for severe illness, either because of age or because they're immunocompromised or things of that nature. Or if you're living with someone who may be at high risk. Those would be the big things that I would recommend considering, being mindful about potentially continuing to mask or things of that nature. We are, at Public Health, we've given out over 15,000 test kits, boxes. So that's over 30,000 test kits that have gone out to Yamhill County community members. And we're really excited about that and hope that those have been valuable and that people have been able to use those. As I said earlier, we are monitoring to try to understand if there's going to be any need for us to step back in and do broader community testing. At this point, we don't think that that's a need, and that's why we did close down our events that we were having at the fairgrounds, because there was very low volume, and we were hearing from our community partners and healthcare providers that they were also seeing the low volume. So we made the decision that for March, we were taking a pause, and we'd be reevaluating over the course of the next couple of weeks and determining what we'll do then. I think that's most of what I have to share on the COVID front. As far as HHS, certainly all sorts of work continues to happen outside of the realm of COVID within public health and all of our other divisions. I think we are really working on a number of things that we're tracking and doing some data analytics on related to other communicable diseases that we're concerned about. Things like syphilis that we've seen more than double over the course of 1 year and things like that. So we're really trying to narrow down what sort of strategies we can use from a public health standpoint to support hopefully decreasing some of those cases and things of that nature. We are getting ready to launch our voluntary universally offered home visiting program. So for families that have a new baby and want to have a postpartum visit from a public health nurse around 2 weeks, where we're going to be working on launching that over the coming months here, and we're really excited about that. Our behavioral health work, we're really working closely with partners like Provoking Hope and our legal court system, law enforcement around Measure 110. So many of you remember when Measure 110 was voted in by the voters, individuals who were found in possession or using narcotics would get a citation of $100 for that, which was a big shift in terms of what that meant for the person being cited. And if a person went through a screening process for behavioral health and were able to do that citation would be eliminated. What we know is that the initial rollout, it took a little bit to catch up with in terms of funding to support added elements of that measure. And so what has happened up until now is really very few people have taken that opportunity to go through that screening process. And we are really committed to making that look different in Yamhill County. And so one of the things that we've been working with, or who we've been working with, is Provoking Hope, local law enforcement, and our court system to make sure that we can do active outreach through peer support agencies like Provoking Hope, where when someone gets that citation, they're able to connect with them and say, hey, I've been there, where are you at? Can I help you with something? And really walk alongside them and hopefully get more individuals, not only doing the screening process to eliminate the citation fee, but also hopefully taking those next steps as well as engaging in treatment. And we're really looking at our own internal workflows and processes to make sure that when someone is at that phase of wanting to access treatment, that we're ready to bring them in and could do it right there on the spot. So a lot of great work happening around all of the Measure 110 work. I'm really grateful for the partners like Provoking Hope, our local law enforcement and Sheriff's Office, and a lot of great partners who are really working hard to make sure that we can do what's right for folks and get everyone into treatment who wants to get into treatment. So I think those are my big highlights right now, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, well, Director Manfrin, thank you for adding the bit about the slow rollout of Measure 110, the treatment side of it, because I've had, I would say, many prominent elected officials around Oregon kind of blast, say this is a failure. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I realize that it's slow, but I know that at least in our county, we're at the point of getting awards and setting up, programs. So I know it's hard to be patient, right? And it's people's lives, but thank you for being really on it. Do you anticipate the needle exchange being at all involved in any of that, like peer work and then leading to treatment?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's part of the hope with the needle exchange program right now that is operated by peers in with that exact sort of mindset of knowing that would be great. A couple of the things that we are hoping to get funding for soon through some of the additional Measure 110 funding that we wrote a grant for is to support having a nurse be able to go out on site with the needle exchange program, as well as to other places, including shelters and things like that, to support people through communicable disease testing, sometimes treatment if needed, as well as things like wound care and all of those types of things. So we're really hoping that we can keep bolstering that work that we're doing.
That's awesome. That's super awesome. And then I wanted to, at the county, the county commissioners have had one briefing, but I know there's a lot of work going on with what it looks like to have a new public health building. And I wasn't sure because it's in pieces and in further conversations. Do you have any details or even broad concepts that you want to share with the folks here? And specifically, we have on U.S. Senate staffers and the state. So I know that we need money at some point for it.
Right. Certainly money is helpful. I've got to just, our public health building, if folks have been there, it is in a fair amount of disrepair, not because it's not being maintained, but because it's just an old building that, in the mornings we need to go and we have to sweep the sidewalk because the stucco is falling. We've had to go multiple days with parts of the building not having power. We've got some significant struggles. And so we are really excited that there is some momentum and some support to get a building where we can really feel like we're able to function at our highest capacity because we've got that structure in place. I think that there's a lot of work happening right now with the entire county assessment and what's happening, looking at the various components of county administration and just maybe condensing some things and those types of things. So those conversations are happening sort of in parallel with talking about the public health building to ensure that we know how all those puzzle pieces fit together. I think there's also some interest in a number of community partners that I've talked to in looking at how so much of the public health building is really, a lot of it is focused on services for families and young kids, and thinking about, are there ways that we can include other types of services that may not be, public health services, may not be, county-based services, but are community social services and different types of things that support families all in one place. Conceptualizing this sort of one-stop shop, if you will, for families, just trying to make it easier for people that are trying to navigate a complex system that often requires multiple steps and multiple places to go. So there's kind of all three of these conversations are happening simultaneously, and again, wanting to make sure that all those puzzle pieces are fitting together.
Sounds like a congressionally directed spending request in somewhere down the road, especially for that building.
Thank you.
Yes. But it's why I was like, okay, how much detail does Director Manfrin want to go into? But like getting you all on this of, we're working on a building to really improve people's lives. I mean, that's like getting everybody together so that they're not like, well, you have to go here, and actually the bus doesn't go there, and so you need a car, and somebody along the lines maybe doesn't speak the same language, and yeah. huge benefit to people in the community, right? Okay, well, thank you, Director Manfrin, for fielding that question and for your update. I really appreciate it. Good news, right? And then with that, I want to invite Betsy, Emery, and Fritz Graham, whoever wants to, if you want to tag team all the interesting things that are happening, including a vote this morning I saw that was unanimous. So welcome.
More than I do. Betsy, you want to start? So, I mean, sometimes I start, and I think I started last time, so.
You go for it. It's fine.
Okay. So on Thursday night, the U.S. Senate passed the omnibus budget bill that was supposed to be completed by September 30th. The president signed it, and it includes congressionally directed spending, along with a lot of other money for Oregon. But for Yamhill County, under congressional directed spending, we have $500,000 for the City of Newburgh Emergency Wastewater Treatment Plant, City of Willamina Water Intake Repair, $2 million, City of Yamhill Treatment Plant Project, $192,000, and then Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Center's Newburgh Clinic Expansion, $2.1 million. So some good money there. That happened Friday, and then on Monday we started the ability to put for requests for the 2023 earmarks CDS requests. And we should have all received that, and if not, we'll get you the information you need to get to the portal and give the information. I want to, I mean, Casey, you've been having these water meetings. You took a lot of people out on trips to these water treatment plants, and it was very helpful for us to express to our staff in DC, you know, what was needed and why it was needed, because these things haven't been worked on for a while. So I've got a couple of other things, but I want to start off with CDS.
That's super awesome. Hooray. And thanks to Betsy, who I believe was the one who initiated those water tours. You said you wanted to see them, so.
No, I needed to see what wastewater treatment plants look like. But yeah, kind of getting back to what Fritz said, we did send out the guidance last week. So the application period is basically Monday through April 1st at 6 p.m. You can submit your applications. And there's a lot of different opportunities, whether it's water, whether it's, behavioral health, mental health, things like that, health clinics, facilities for stuff like that. Let's see, what else? Rural development, community facilities, broadband, telemedicine expansions, all kinds of different opportunities. So again, if you don't have that guidance, there's shelter opportunities, housing opportunities, all kinds of different programs that are really available to submit applications under. So feel free to follow up with Fritz and I if you are thinking about a program or curious about more things like that. The other thing that's on my list, I guess, aside from the appropriations life that Fritz and I are living in right now, is that I'm also the senator is doing all of his town halls, and the Polk County Town Hall has been scheduled. It is going to be on Saturday, March 26th at 2 p.m. So his public town hall will be at 2 p.m. And then, of course, he does host a meet and greet for the 30 minutes before the town hall with the regional leaders. I'll be inviting everyone on this call to that, so you can have a little bit more personalized time with him to talk about some of the things you guys are dealing with in the county. So again, that'll be on Saturday, March 26th. The meet and greet will start at 1:30, and then the town hall will be at 2 p.m. It's all virtual, so I'll be sending out those links before the end of this week. And yeah, so that's really kind of what's going on my side. Fritz, you said you had a couple more things you wanted to mention.
And Fritz, you're still muted.
Thank you. Sorry. In the infrastructure bill, it's not about it's not about specifically what you were talking about, Casey, but there is the Affordable Connectivity Fund, which was an expansion of the program that was started during COVID started for kids who we were expanding schooling was going to be online, and kids who didn't have that. It's been expanded. It's larger. It's a little bit less money, but you can, schools, if they're at a certain percentage level on the free and reduced lunch, they'll just do it in mass, and it can save a lot of money in areas. So that's a good thing. The other thing I just want to add to what you were saying, Casey, is that, water, the federal government does not move quickly. You had the climate crisis last summer, and they got money. They got $162 million, or they haven't gotten it, but it was announced a few days ago. Water, we're not nimble that way. And so planning, knowing what you need to do, and what we found out last year is for these water projects, if you're not, and for other CDS projects, the state needs to know what you're doing. You need to be on any lists that they have in order for us, because that gives us the feds an okay. It says, okay, they're on this list, we'll be likely to give them money. So just long-term planning. If you can't get the money, if you can't get the project for CDS this time, then start planning for next time and the next year and the next year. So, because it takes water, it takes a while.
Yeah, that's super helpful, Fritz. So for the folks who are looking at congressionally directed spending, and you can work with Jody, right, to make sure that your project is something that it qualifies or is on a list at the state level. And Brent has a question. And Fritz, sorry. We'll do Fritz and then Brent. Yeah,
I just wanted to say, so in the guidance, it gives you the contact of the person who you need to talk to at the state, so that we're trying to make this as smooth as possible. So you're not calling us or Jody when here's the name of the person that you need to call.
So I just have a question on the congressionally directed spending. So as everyone on this call is aware, we're kind of in a weird phase right now as we transition into the new congressional district. And, it definitely doesn't affect the two of you guys. But as far as any of the designated spending on the House side, should we still be working through Congressman Schrader's office, or should we be working through just focusing on the Senate side and saying, okay, the House will pick back up once the new congressional district is established? Is there any advice you can give there?
Yeah. Work well in the Yamhill County. It'd be Congresswoman Bonamici. But yeah, work with them. Work with Congressman Schrader. I don't know what changes there, but for what we put out on Monday, yes, absolutely. Go to the Senate. Go to your House members, and then that will change the 2024 budget period, because that's when they'll start with being able to make those requests. Congressman Schrader will make requests for his area right now until the end of this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And then Betsy, when you were reading the list, was there anything that was matching the focus of a career in technical education?
Yeah, there are some programs for that under the Department of Education. So there's like the fund for improvements to post-secondary education, which is a lot of workforce development stuff. And then there is all the Department of Labor programs under Employment and Training Administration.
Super, thank you. And then
Betsy, can I follow it? So I went through this ringer last year with a different project, and so I have a little bit of experience with this. Is there one of those budgets that's a bigger budget that would be a better target than the other?
I don't know. Fritz, do you have any insight in that? I know that the committee that both of those live in, Employment and Training Administration and the Department of Education, those both live within the Labor, Health, and Human Services committee, and that committee as a whole has a lot of money. They're a big funder in appropriations. But Fritz, do you know about the specific programs? You're muted.
But we could tell what he said.
I don't. Sorry, but we can help you figure that out.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
And then I wanted to ask, Fritz and Betsy were problem solving, brainstorming how to get this irrigation district eligible for any money. I'm guessing that there still isn't really a thing to wedge them into.
I haven't heard any confirmation on what their business organization is classified as. So that's still the limiting factor for me. But it is on my list to look through this, because there are the programs within ag for Natural Resource Conservation Service and the Watershed Flood Prevention Operations programs. So those could be fits. I don't know that much about them, but that's still the remaining question.
Okay, super.
Yeah, agreed. But that brings up another point reminds me, for our entities that submitted last time, resubmit this time. A lot of times in the past when we were working on earmarks back in the 2010s, people wouldn't get it the first time, but they might get it the second or the third or the fourth time. So it's yearly, so you don't have to wait too long. So just resubmit, change it up if it needs to be, but resubmit.
Right, because things change every week, we learned from Jody. Okay, well, do you have any other questions for Fritz and Betsy? And I really appreciate you giving us these updates. All right, great. Then I'm going to go on to Mayor Linda Watkins. Mayor, what would you like to share with people? Or maybe, you don't, and I can move it on to Brent.
We'll see if we can make it work this way, if you can't see me.
I can hear you.
As long as you can hear me, this is probably the more important aspect, yes. We've just been busy over here. In fact, thank you, Betsy Emery, for following up with the congressionally directed spending information. And when I get done here, I'm going up to sign our letters of request, and we'll get those in the mail. Our staff has been working round the clock on that, so we're ready to go. Yeah, so yeah, there were just some very big projects that we need to get done this year, especially with water and sewer and the civic building, and you just keep on going. So anyway, that's great. Other than that, that's kind of what our focus has been for really the last couple of weeks, is just trying to get ourselves organized and get that done. I can't remember if we've talked since we approved the civic building project. So we'll be, we've approved that. Well, yeah, we hope. We've got that done. We did our goal setting the week before last, and it's a little pared down from what it was the year before. It was fairly ambitious the year before, and so we kind of went through and cleaned that up a little bit. But that's about it from here. I just really appreciate everything that the congressmen have been doing, and that you folks have been doing, and Casey, that you've been doing, and Jody too, and Lindsay, and we're just very lucky to have you guys on our side. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Betsy.
I just want to clarify something that Mayor Watkins said. So she is referring to the fact that basically all of the infrastructure funding for water and wastewater is being funneled through the clean water and what's the other one? Clean and drinking water, safe drinking water revolving loan funds. And so basically, if your projects are not on the list, they need to be on the list. That's how they will be that's how they will be eligible for projects or for the infrastructure funding. And I do want to put it in context. Arthur made it so clear to me the other day we were talking. And he was saying that basically the revolving loan fund has always been seen as like a really competitive source of funding, and also less desirable because it's loan funding basically. But the way that it was written into the infrastructure bill, it actually requires that it's a 49% loan, 51% grant with all of the funding that they give out. And so they are in discussions about whether that's going to be on a per project or per portfolio basis. But basically he was saying that on an annual basis, each of those funds has increased by the amount that they have given out in the entire fund's history. So they have a lot, they have a lot of money to give out on water and wastewater treatment projects over the next 5 years. So all that to say, work the project, get your project on that list, and that's really clearing the first hurdle to access any of the infrastructure funding for water and sewer.
Well, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And did you want to clarify, Mayor?
No, I think that we're okay on that. I probably, in the course of trying to run through stuff real quick, I misspoke, but yeah, I think we've got it. But I'll check with Shannon when I go up there just to make sure. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And I will say, thank you, Fritz, for reminding me about the 182 million for the Klamath Basin.
62.
162? Okay, because the folks out there are very clearly like, we need relief. We need to figure this out, or all hell breaks loose, basically. It's desperate out there. So thank you. I know that both senators have been on that. And as you said, it doesn't move quickly. But I like to think that it's slow but big. Right. Okay, well, Brent, I would love to have you update folks if you can. You had a big party yesterday.
We had a great party yesterday. I think there were probably 120 people there, which I don't have the background to know how often that happens in Sheridan, but I don't suspect very often. It was great to see all of the people that are interested and excited about the project. I'm not even going to try to list all of the elected officials and everyone that was there because I don't have my notes today and I would miss someone. And so that would be bad. We officially have named the project now. So it's the Barbara Roberts Career Technical Education Center, named for Barbara Roberts because she graduated from Sheridan High School in 1955. So that was really cool to have her there and, have some of her classmates there. And, it was a fun event. And I think it was also for a lot of people, it may have been one of the first post-COVID events. So there were a lot of people who were kind of giggly just being at a face-to-face event. So one of the things that Superintendent Vickery shared is, so this project, full package on this thing, we're looking at a $14 million project. And, to give that context, Lincoln High School, which has just been being rebuilt up in downtown Portland, is a $245 million project. So 14 kind of makes you take a step back, but it's not, it's how you look at it. And I think it's a big lift, but it's a doable lift. And I think it's going to take a lot of, it's going to take working with everyone and figuring out how to make this thing happen. But it's exciting. So, Casey, it was great having you there. I don't know if you have anything to add as far as the takeaways or questions you may have had, or, that may be an offline conversation. I don't know. But
yeah, I think a question that's helpful. Sometimes I just feel like my job is to try to find money for people who are doing work in our community. Uh-huh. And so the one thing I wanted to find out is, so you have pathways that you need funding for, and then you need funding for the total building renovation. Is there a way to get a pathway going and renovate part of the building, or is it you have to do the whole package at once?
So we're trying to do as much of that as possible. Some of the stuff you have to do to make the shell school safe. And so you can't, you couldn't just say, we're going to open one of the strands today, because it wouldn't be safe to have students in. But I think, if you look at the plans we've put out, we have a phase 1, phase 2. And so, there may be some classroom space that's not fully developed, but you probably at least put the walls in, and you do some of that kind of stuff. So that's.
Yeah, and sorry, strands. I got to get my nomenclature down.
Yeah.
I did notice that the sprinklers all had cardboard around them. So, but that's a sprinkler system. There's a sprinkler system, right? There's these basic things that are needed that are there. And I, for one, for the folks who haven't been to the site, I didn't realize that it's actually like nearly, or if not perfectly physically connected to the high school complex. Like it's kitty corner to or adjacent, which is amazing, and at the end of a dead end road. Yeah,
it's actually a real exciting location because I think it really can almost be run adjacent, connected to the high school, and that's a conversation that's out of my realm as far, but I think that's a conversation that's being had also.
Yeah. And I heard that from the front door of the high school at a high schooler's walking pace, that it's 7 minutes into the building. And that's really all on school property.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is tremendous, right? That's a great thing.
Yeah.
And I noted, as opposed to an hour in a bus to get kids to Salem.
Yeah, or even more if you're taking them to the place on the east side.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, but I thought it was amazing. It was great to see so many people there who clearly were really excited about technical education in the West Valley.
Yeah.
And I think keeping kids in school and getting them graduated and having them like on a path to success for their lives is huge.
Well, and it's, the career technical education is something that just sinks, it works with a lot of kids a lot better than classroom education does. And, it's important that people have access to that.
Yes, for sure. So thanks for your work.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Are there any last thoughts before we go into the world? All right. Well, it's wonderful to have all of you experts in your area and passionate people with us. Stay aware, COVID's still out there, as Director Manfrin mentioned, but hooray for a few more in-person things in all of our lives. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we will see you next week.